so I'm going to stick to what I've written, just basically to make sure, because I can speak off the cuff, and I'd be glad to, and I think when we get the questions, I'll do that. But for the most part, I just want to thank Sandy for dedicating her time to seek public service. I certainly know the commitment it takes and the effects it has on you and your family, if she was here. What has always helped me is to always put God, family, and your community above all else. So thank you. And then, in my introduction, I'm Bob Titus, your incumbent state representative for 139 District. Tammy and I moved to Christian County in 1984. We raised 10 children, all homeschooled, and we now have 18 grandchildren. Probably ought to make that 19. For 30 years, I owned and operated my own insurance agency right here in Southwest Missouri before retiring to serve full-time in Jefferson City. Since 2023, I have proudly served as one of the most conservative members of the Missouri House. As an elected officer in the Missouri Freedom Caucus, I have consistently fought for life from conception, the Second Amendment, school choice, parental rights, limited government, and the fidelity to the Missouri Republican platform. I've kept my commitments to this district, delivered results, and maintained a strong conservative voting record. I respectfully ask for you to vote, for your vote, so we can continue to work together.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we'll go ahead. So first question for you, Bob. What government programs or agencies would you consider reducing or eliminating to protect taxpayers' rights and their money?
That's a good question. So the bureaucracy is swollen in Jefferson City, as well as in Washington, D.C. Now, we can't affect Washington, D.C. as much as we can affect Missouri. And so doing away with a lot of extraneous programs, which, in paying all the bureaucrats to administer those is a good move. Now, it's going to take time and study to determine which ones we can do without. But I know that that's the case because, like I said, the bureaucracy is swollen. And, there's just far too much dependency on the state government for resources that motivated people to provide for themselves. I'm not in favor of cutting everybody off in an unkind way. What I'm in favor of is some responsibility, both from the taxpayers, the citizens who receive those benefits, but also from the state, who collects money from the taxpayers to administer these programs. So it's time for there to be a relationship between the sacrifice the voters and the taxpayers are making and the needs of the people that are receiving benefits. I mean, it's swollen. It's swollen, the size of government and what benefits are being received. So that needs to be studied. I don't put myself in the position of determining who gets what, but I know there's a study that needs to be made to determine how we reduce that. One of the big expenses, as you all know, if you've looked at your property tax bill, is the schools. And the schools get an enormous amount of money. I'll tell you what, the expense we need for schools would be a lot less if parents would just do their jobs. And we can't handle that with legislation, but what we can do is encourage parents to do parenting. And so we don't need this anymore, where people just drop their kids off unprepared to learn and unprepared to become responsible adults. Drop them off at the school at the earliest age and expect teachers to bear the burden of training them and preparing them to be responsible adults in ways that many parents don't do. So I think that's the exception rather than the rule. But I'll tell you what, teachers' times are grossly spent in taking care of parenting type of issues. And I just want to see parents step up and do the right thing.
Thank you, Bob. Next question. I apologize. Let the applause begin. Missouri has a budget surplus. Should excess revenue be returned to the taxpayers through rate cuts used to eliminate the income tax entirely over time or reserved for infrastructure? Walk us through your priorities.
Okay, it's simple. Let's return that to the taxpayer. You guys earned that money. You ought to keep that money. And I'll tell you what, if the state needs more money, you can, and we switch to a consumption tax, go out and buy more things. And the state will receive more money. But for right now, I want you to police the money that you receive from your hard-earned, your hard-earned money from your hard-worked jobs. And so the state to sit on that as a treasure chest, I think is not a good service to you. So I think that's the answer. We're going to eliminate the income tax. And then down the road, we're going to eliminate the property tax. In the way we do taxation in this state, I expect to change probably in the next 10 years. So hopefully, certainly in the next 5. But as that happens, we need to make sure that you, the people of Missouri, are in control of the finances, and that the state doesn't continue to collect more money than it really, really needs. So no surpluses. And no swollen government.
Thank you, Bob. Next one. At what point, if any, would you invoke Missouri's 10th Amendment authority to resist federal mandates? And can you give specific examples of where you would draw the line?
Where I draw the line? Let's see. Well, I think one area I can think of is immigration. And immigration is enforced by a federal agency, and I think that we need, as a state, we need to support what is being done by the federal agency to basically take care of an out of control illegal immigration problem. So I would support that, but I think we can pass legislation, and I did sponsor some, to put the state in a better position, put law enforcement in the state in a better position to support what the federal agencies are doing. But by and large, I think for the most part, we as a state, we as a law enforcement community should not be administering federal regulations that are not constitutional. In other words, and we're not rioting, we're not resisting. What we're doing is just not cooperating with unconstitutional things. The SEPA bill is a good example of that. So in the SEPA bill, basically it said that we, as a state, our law enforcement officials could not be compelled to enforce federal regulations on that. And I think that's a good one. But of course, now we're back in that fight. And so what we need to do is to re-implement SEPA in Missouri and protect law enforcement and our gun rights.
Thank you. I'm waiting for the applause. Should Missouri move to a single election day with no early voting, and what other election and Republican Party integrity measures would you enact and support?
Well, outside of the primary, I think all elections should take place in November, and I think people have demonstrated when they want to turn out to vote. I mean, it'd be nice to scatter it out throughout the whole year, when if people were adequately informed and turned out in vast numbers. But that in actual practice, it doesn't happen. People don't turn out for April elections, for instance, in any mass, and so the outcome of that is unrepresentative of what the will of the people is. And in these agencies that tend to gain by April elections, they turn out a lot of people. And so I say, the voters have demonstrated when they prefer to vote, so I think that needs to be November. And I think when we get that, what we'll get is a more representative government.
Thank you. And I'm going through all the questions since we have time. Should Missouri pursue energy independence through expanded nuclear, natural gas, and coal capacity rather than wind and solar subsidies? What would you do to make this happen?
Well, first of all, I think the important thing is that we protect electric buyers, all of you with your electric bills, from being gouged by the utilities for more infrastructure that they're going to build. I mean, that's a gross miscarriage, I think, of what fairness is. And in these utilities, I mean, they should have their own capital resources to spend on expanding research, their infrastructure. And what we don't need is for them to be sticking it to you on your utility bill in order to expand in the future. That being said, yes, we need to expand energy production in a variety of different ways, and I don't mean solar, and I don't mean wind, because those are unreliable. And we have enough of that, I think already. Nuclear is a great option, but we need to get new technology in place, and we need public acceptance of that. And I think if we do that, we'll see that it has a very positive effect on the economy, number one, but it has a positive effect on our utility bills. And by positive, I mean they're going to go down, and certainly not go up. But so that's what we need to do is make ourselves more energy independent, and it'll be good for expansion of the state and economic development. I think it will attract new industry that way. But bottom line, you'll keep more of your utility payment in your own pocket and use it for good things rather than to make these big monopolies even bigger.
Thank you, Bob. And the final question I had for the 139th, Missouri has seen efforts to expand hate speech laws and add sexual orientation and gender identity to protected class status. Where do you stand, and what are the implications for churches, employers, and candidates?
Oh, it's the ultimate kind of tyranny. I mean, when they have thought police, they can come down on you for anything. And just defending yourself is an enormous amount of legal expense. So, we don't need that for our churches. We don't need that for our families. We don't need that for our employers, where, they are under assault from people who are being politically correct and demanding certain tolerances. And the fact is, we're a reasonable people. I mean, we're blessed to be in Christian County, where people are reasonable, and I think they're right thinking. And so I want to think that applies to most of the state too, where we don't need federal laws to tell us how to be decent people, because I think we are decent people, and especially here in Christian County. So yeah, the federal laws that regulate your behavior, that regulate your speech, that regulate what you think, they need to go away. It's just not American.
Thank you, Bob. I'll go ahead and, go ahead and ask any questions from the floor at this point. Yes, go ahead.
Try to keep it short and sweet. Hang on. We have
I thought everybody could hear me. That we have sort of an uncontrolled situation with property tax in the schools. And is there any relief that you see or that you can facilitate in the law to rein that in?
Well, and it was mentioned earlier, basically tying the cost to educate a child to the child. And where we don't have these huge government schools that are just gobbling up the money and then using it at their own discretion. I'm not saying they don't need the money. I'm saying there needs to be just like any other kind of capitalist, any kind of enterprise, you need to tie production to earnings. And so I think we can do that with the school system too. It's a huge expense on your property tax, and we need to bring that in. And I don't want to diminish the school or the school's ministry to our county, but I do want to say that parents are in the best position to determine what's best for their child. And I want every parent to understand it's their fundamental role to determine what's best for their child and start making those decisions at a very early age. You can't just delegate that to the state or to any school and expect a good outcome. You've got to be an involved parent. I think by and large, especially in Christian County, I think most parents are very involved with their children. But to say that they need, what should we call it? Maybe a father figure in the school system to control what your child needs in order to be a whole adult human being, I think it's not fair. I think parents are in the best position to do that. So to answer your question is, yeah, we need to rein that in, and if we can do away with property taxes, we'll replace it with a consumption tax. But I think that parents, or not just parents, everybody can decide what they pay in taxes based on what they purchase. And so I think it's just a reasonable, responsible way to do it.
Thank you, Bob. No, somebody else. Anybody else have questions for Bob? If you live in the district or you have a question for Bob, how about way over in the cheap seats? Anybody over there have a question? No other questions? Okay, I'll let you go ahead and ask one more and then we'll finish up.
It's just a follow-up to that question. It's my understanding that the current income tax rearrangement relaxes the Hancock Act, which wasn't very good to begin with, because the schools could always get around it with their debt two-step. But without that in place, which is part of what's being implemented, how do we protect ourselves from absolutely out of control school board budget increases with no ability to vote for those things?
That's an excellent question. I'll tell you what, and all of you are here tonight, you're doing what needs to be done, and that's holding elected officials accountable and being involved and being informed. That's the whole thing. And if we can get more of your peers throughout the state getting involved and holding their elected officials accountable, I think we can keep that in. It's a scary thing to do away, even if in a limited capacity and for a duration, do away with the Hancock Amendment. Yes, the schools currently are abusing that, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about modifying the way the state collects its general revenue, and it's not an easy thing. It's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing, and there's some peril in it. Because you are giving the legislature, if you vote for this, you're giving the legislature an opportunity to basically do all that stuff on its own. And honestly, I don't know that I trust all my peers that way. But I'm an advocate for it, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a hard thing. I want to do hard things. We're here to do hard things, not risky things. We're here to make changes that it's going to enhance liberty in our state, let taxpayers keep their money and determine with their own discretion how their money gets spent and what taxes they pay. And so I hope that answered your question, John. But yeah, you're exactly right. The Hancock Amendment, we're going to it's going to bow down so that we can get some new tax reform written up in the legislature. And I just pray that the right-thinking Republicans up there are conscientious enough and have enough courage to confront any potential abuses. Today, I think we can do it. No guarantees.
Appreciate it. And 1 minute for closing comment.
I have a question for Sandy. If Jack would like to answer it, I'm okay with that.
No, Jack, with Sandy's running, so if you want to ask the question, he's recording anyway, so you might as well go ahead and ask the question, and then we'll just let it sit.
Okay. I'll look at the camera. Sandy, you have served as 7th Congressional District Chair and Christian County Republican Vice Chair. In both roles, you were given opportunities to unify establishment and grassroots conservatives. Instead, multiple groups experienced broken commitments on slates and appointments that sidelined grassroots voices leading to resignations and new competitive organizations. Why should Republican voters in the 139th district believe you will unify and faithfully represent all conservatives in Jefferson City when your record in party leadership has instead shown a pattern of division and favoring establishment insiders? And I'll just say that I'm not answering your question, but having served in the Freedom Caucus,
No, you can only ask the question and not continue on.
it takes
Is
courage.
it part of your question?
Takes courage. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so your 1 minute closing remark?
Thank you. I've delivered results as your proven conservative representative. By the way, I don't want to take over my time, but Christian County is reputed to be the second most conservative county in the state. So congratulations to you. I've kept my word to this district, maintained a strong Freedom Caucus voting record, and focused on the issues that matter, not on climbing ladders or settling personal ambitions. Experience, character, and consistency matter. I respectfully ask for your continued support on August 4th so that we can keep fighting for Christian County values in Jefferson City. God bless you, and God bless the 139th District.
Thank you, Bob.